All right, let's fast forward in time. You feel like you have almost reached your goal of cutting for your New Year's resolution. Let's be real, that's generally what people do. They want to cut, but how do you know when to stop? Today, we are going to go over the 6 S's and how I use them to tell me when to stop or when I need to reverse out and get into sort of a maintenance period. So, if you are interested in that and knowing when to stop cutting, let's get to the episode. All right, so for the 6 things that we are going to cover, you can use these as sort of indicators that you need to either have a deload period, that you need to enter into a higher calorie phase, go into a maintenance mode, or anything else that sort of puts your diet on pause or stops it altogether. Now, I look at these things in combination to sort of tell me what direction I need to go in. If it's only a couple of them, maybe I deload, maybe I up my calories for a little bit. But if I see enough disturbance in these 6 areas, I am probably reversing pretty hard out of a diet, which we will go into in the next episode. How do you reverse out of a diet? There's a lot of information out there. I'll just tell you what I do. So the number one indicator, and probably the most important indicator, is sleep and or sleep quality and or sleep volume. So what's all that? Things you want to look for are consistent drops in sleep quality or sleep length. You're also going to want to look to see if you are feeling tired even after a full night's rest. Now, generally, whenever we engage in some type of cutting, if you have gone into a diet for long enough, you know at some point you'll hit a certain body fat range, you'll hit a certain calorie deficit, and your sleep will begin to be disturbed. Now, I think we all know some of the negative side effects that come with a lack of sleep or poor sleep quality. We're going to have lower energy throughout the day. We're not going to be able to recover as well. Our eating window, heaven forbid, that's going to widen up and open. And so now we're going to be awake for longer periods of the day, wondering why we're so hungry. Multiple things are going to happen with lower sleep quality and overall sleep volume that are going to impact just our ability to maintain the cut. So what is it that I look for in terms of my sleep? Now, you can get a whole bunch of fancy sleep trackers. I've got an 8 sleep bed. That thing's pretty cool. It'll track sort of your sleep stages. You got a bunch of fancy watches and stuff like that that'll also do the same. I don't look into any sort of fancy number. I just look in total, what I'm going to call total volume of sleep or sleep quantified in minutes. So let's just say I used to average around 7 hours. I know that's a little bit less than 8, but whatever. So 7 hours of sleep, that's around 420 minutes. And so why do I want to quantify it in minutes? I think the smaller sort of the increment on the unit, the more useful the figure is, especially when you're going to be working with percentages like I am. So 420 minutes as opposed to 7 hours. So I want to look for a consistent around 5 to 10% decrease in overall sleep length, sleep volume, and that over the period of a week or two tells me that my sleep quality is being impacted by something that I'm doing. Now, whether that be the calorie deficit or just overall body fat percentage that I'm at, my sleep quality has reduced for some reason, probably one of those two and probably a combination. So I'll float a picture up here of where I am currently sitting at in terms of my body fat percentage. If I had to guess, I am probably, high single digit, low double digit, and this is my sort of second cut for the year, and it is the tail end of the cut. I actually had to pull out of a 12-week, so the plan was for 12 weeks, but I had to pull out at around week 10 because of the rest of these indicators, along with poor sleep quality that we're going over right now. Last thing before we move on to the next variable that we're going to cover, whenever I did pull out of this cut, my sleep quality had reduced by about 30 to 45 minutes, or in exactly the 5 to 10% range over the course of about 10 days. With my sleep being consistently decreased like that, other factors that I looked into were caffeine intake. Having a schedule for when you are going to sleep is going to be very important, and that is going to help with recovery. Now, the thing that I found out, even when looking at my caffeine intake, making sure that I was eating meals close enough towards bedtime that I wasn't going to bed hungry, I still wasn't sleeping as long as I wanted to. My sleep length or volume was decreasing pretty consistently. So that was a big, big indicator and might be one of the only ones that you need. But the second indicator that I looked at was strength. So the number two indicator, or number two in terms of importance, whenever you're cutting, at a certain point, you're going to notice a sort of strength drop off. Now, that strength drop off could be in repetitions, or it could just be in total volume of sets that you are able to complete at a particular weight for a particular amount of reps. Now, this isn't going to be really that sciencey, but the thing that I do is if I train a body parts a couple of times a week, let's just say chest, and I notice rep drop offs in workout one, okay, that might be something. It might not be anything. And then I go to train chest in the second part of the week, and I'm noticing either a strength or rep drop off. Okay, that might be something too. But I give it another week after that. So in week 2, if I'm still noticing a consistent, not maintenance, because at a certain point, maintenance of strength is the goal. Once you get into a deep enough calorie deficit, it's just going to be about maintaining strength. But if in week 2, I'm still not maintaining my strength, I will either roll into a deload, or if I am close enough to the sort of endpoint of my cut, I'm just going to reverse out all the way. So I was at week 10, so I decided to just it's not deload time. It's time to sort of get back into the land of maintenance. And so really the sleep and the strength, two big indicators that me and you might want to consider sort of reversing out of whatever dieting you're doing. Number 3, sickness. So if you have ever dieted or cut for long enough, gotten lean enough, you may notice that towards the tail end of your cuts that you feel a bit more susceptible to getting ill. Now, this could be like minor colds or things like that, but you notice just the frequency with which you either get sniffles or coughs. It feels like it goes up. Now, I don't have a good way to quantify this, but towards the tail end of some of my cuts, I just noticed that I just feel a little bit off. So things to look out for: pretty consistent lethargy, possibly catching colds more frequently, coughing, sneezing, things like that to look out for. And a way that I keep track of this is I do a bit of journaling most mornings, and so I make note of how I'm feeling on each day. That way I can keep track of what is going on in terms of my overall physical health. I would note, consistent feelings of being a little bit cold, obviously the sleep and the strength, and then persistently feeling lethargic. So sickness comes in at number 3. Number 4, hunger and fullness signals. So the thing for me that sort of has ruined so many of my diets is feeling too hungry, never feeling full, and there are some things we want to look at. So at a certain point in any diet for anybody, and it's going to be different for everybody because everybody has different bodies, you are going to feel hungry a decent amount of the time. And if you want to continue to get leaner, you are going to dig yourself into that hole until you get to where you want to be, or your body pulls you out of that hole forcefully and tells you it's time to stop cutting because perhaps you start eating over on calories, maybe a little bit of binging in there, but your body is going to let you know that, hey, where you're sitting at right now, body fat wise and or energy availability isn't all right. So satiety is the 4th S, and so some things you want to look at. Number 1, making sure the things you can do up front to make sure that this is really a time to factor in your satiety is if you are eating multiple meals throughout the day, 3 to 6, if you have a good spread of fruits, vegetables, whole grains throughout most of your meals, decent servings of protein throughout your whole meals, there's no way to optimize sort of the fiber and whole food ratio any more than you have it, and you still feel consistently hungry and your food focus is up, this would be a good indicator that you need to factor in your satiety. Because the one thing you don't want to do is to reverse out of the diet and it be out of your control. I recall one day reversing out of a diet wasn't my choice. Well, I suppose it was my choice, but it was after, just you get that in your mouth, and I had Qdoba and I had donuts, and that was it for that diet. Now, that was probably 10 plus years ago, but we all go through it. We all go through a period where we diet for maybe a little bit too long, and we don't know when to stop, and our hunger pulls us out of the diet. So before you begin any sort of binging or anything like that, paying attention to your hunger signals, knowing that you've optimized the meal frequency and the nutrient density of the meals, and constant cravings and preoccupation with food still shows up even after you've optimized all those things, that is going to be another indicator that perhaps now is the time to pull out of the diet before things happen that we don't want. Last 2 points that we don't generally talk about in all this of sort of knowing when to reverse out of a diet. Number 5, social situations. Now, all of these things sort of work together and are sort of intermingled and sort of in the Venn diagram of all 6 of these things, they have some overlap. But I think it's useful to break them down like this. So number 5, social situations. The number one things that I look for in social situations is my irritability increased? Now, I find that in work settings, irritability might be wrangled, but if you are around your loved ones, and I hate to say it like this, but because they are the people that are closest to us, they might take sort of the brunt of our emotional dysregulation. Whenever I cut, I get a bit more irritable around the people who are most important to me because, well, I mean, we unfortunately sometimes maybe get desensitized to those around us and they see the best and worst sides of us. So if my irritability begins to sort of bubble up to the surface more frequently than when I'm in my off season, that is a powerful indicator that maybe I am too far deep into this diet, too far gone into this diet, however you want to say that. Another thing is, am I avoiding social situations? Are my friends inviting me out? Am I avoiding parties? Am I avoiding, just, I don't know, going for car rides, doing X, Y, and Z things socially with my family and or friends that I would normally it would not be an issue to say yes to just because I'm feeling a certain way because of the dieting. So if my irritability is up and I'm avoiding social situations, big indicators that maybe we need to pull out of this diet. So pay attention to how much you've said no in social situations, and also how much your sort of irritability or your concentration difficulties go up. Number 6, last but not least, and arguably one of the most important things, sex drive. So, why do we want to factor in sex drive? As you begin dieting, males and females are going to experience some different things whenever you get to a certain energy availability or calorie deficit. Testosterone, if dieting for long enough, that's going to decrease. For all athletes, you're going to feel a bit different in terms of your sex drive. So for me, whenever I get into a deep enough deficit, again, this is all just sort of based off my experience and what I've seen working with some people, your sex drive deep enough into a diet is going to dip some. I don't know, a couple weeks out from a competition, your sex drive might go from daily to once a week or non-existent at all, just because you have dieted a good amount of your body fat off and your testosterone is so low that maybe you have dieted yourself into this sort of hypogonadal state where your sex drive is just non-existent. Now, does that happen for everybody? No, absolutely not. Does that happen generally with New Year's dieting? No, probably not with New Year's dieting, but if you try to get lean enough
and you're not using any special sports supplements,
you are going to run the risk of dropping your sex drive. So for me, just to not get too personal, but I think on average, just whenever I am in a maintenance period or just a gaining phase, like a daily need for, the intercourses is a fine amount. That need, the drive, the urge, completely normal. Once I get deep enough into a diet and I get lean enough, I could probably go a few days and then it just dawns on me like, oh, yeah, I haven't had that urge. And then, for me, again, this isn't for everybody, month out from a show, hardly noticeable. Sex drive, completely in the tank. And so that not only affects me, that affects my wife. And so this is something that I also like to look at. Where is my sex drive? Is my drive daily? Well, then I couldn't be that too deep into a diet. Is it intermittently throughout the week? Is it once a week? Or is it non-existent at all? And the closer you approach to that sort of non-existent point, that means you are in pretty deep and you might want to begin considering, unless you're getting ready to a show. That's the big caveat here. If you're getting ready for a show, you kind of do what you do to get there. But paying attention to your own sex drive can let you know how deep of a deficit that you're in. Now, I combine all of these things and I make the decision based off whether or not I can check the box off on each and every one of these things. Now, some are more important than others. I would prioritize sleep, strength, and hunger, or satiety. Sleep, strength, and satiety, if I'm being honest. However, I also, if I'm beginning to notice things in those areas, I check in on the other areas. I check in on, how am I socially? Am I saying no to things? I don't know about that. Where's my sex drive at? And am I feeling low-key sick every now and then? So I combine all of those things with an emphasis on the big three: sleep, strength, satiety. Those things combined, much like a very weird Captain Planet, let me know that I should pull out of a diet. A simple takeaway today: with the 6 S's of knowing when to pull out of a diet, I would say if you can check off 3 or 4 of these things, as in, i.e., I endorse lower sleep quality, my strength has consistently dropped off over the course of 2 weeks, and my satiety signals are just cattywampus and wonky, I would probably make the decision to sort of pull out and reverse out of a diet. Again, this is just my opinion, but I think paying attention to these 6 areas will give you a personalized way to pay attention to when you need to come out of a diet and enter into a maintenance phase so that you can maintain your gains and not lose them by getting too deep and not having a plan. Alrighty, folks, that is it for this episode. I hope you liked it. I really enjoyed this, and I hope it gave you some actionable things that you can take a look at to know whenever you need to call off your New Year's resolution. You're done, you hit your goal of getting lean, and now you just want to maintain. If any of this information was helpful, hit subscribe, give me a comment and a like, and I will catch you in the next episode for another mental skill and or something else to do with bodybuilding and fitness. Peace. I lied. Also, Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and all the other holidays. Thank you all so much for a tremendous year. To the 400 and almost 50 people who have subscribed to this channel, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. Even your support, even if you don't watch another episode, the fact that you click the subscribe button means a whole lot to me. This has been a tremendous year of learning YouTube, learning myself, learning about the things that I want to talk about, and just getting better at that. You all have given me something to iterate and grow from, and I can't express my appreciation enough. So go into the new year. You know what? I'm not even going to cut that part out. Go into the new year, and I hope you reach all your goals. I'll see you next time.